Recently, I've realized I don't know much about the US government. And I mean things that would be good to know as a US citizen. So I'm trying to fill in the gaps of my knowledge, and I decided to share my findings. Hopefully, they can help other people too. Today, let's take a gander at registering to vote. If you want to vote in any US election, you have to register to vote in your state. Now you might be saying, I'm already registered to vote, so I don't need this video. But states are actually allowed to remove people from their voter lists under certain circumstances. So you may want to stick around to see how to check your registration status. There are 3 ways to register to vote. You can register in person at your state or local election office. To find this, go to your state's election website through usa.gov election office. You can sometimes register in person at several other places as well, such as your state's Department of Motor Vehicles, recruitment centers for the armed services, and public assistance offices like WIC and SNAP. But you should check with these locations before you go, because they don't always offer registration services. The easiest way to register is online. You can do this in 39 states and in Washington, D.C. at vote.gov. But as of 2020, you can't register online in these 11 states. A third way is to register by mail. USA.gov Register to Vote has a link to a national voter registration form in 15 different languages. You can print and fill out the form and then mail it to your state or local election office. You can find the address by going to usa.gov election office, choose your state, and it will take you to your state's election website. There, you'll have to look around to find the information though. Also, don't forget that in most states, you can't register to vote on an election day. Different states have different deadlines for registering to vote before the election. In some states, you have up to a week or 10 days before the election to register. But in others, you have to register up to 30 days before the election. You can go to vote.org to find out your state's deadline. Fortunately, as of 2020, Washington, D.C. and 21 states allow same-day voter registration. In these states, you can register and vote on the same day. Some of these states allow same-day voter registration during the early voting period and on election day. Some allow it only during early voting, and others allow it only on election day itself. And in most states, you register and vote at the same location. This will be the ordinary location where you early vote and your ordinary polling place for election day, though that is not the case for Montana, North Carolina, Rhode Island, and Washington. In these states, you have to register in a different place than where you vote. Check these websites for more details. If you do same-day registration, then you will need to provide a state ID, but some states do allow a bill or a paycheck with your address instead. You can check what states allow same-day registration and what type of identification each state requires by going to the link for the National Conference of State Legislatures and vote.org. What information do you need to provide in order to register to vote? Like with many things in the US of A, it's going to vary from state to state. According to headcount.org, you will usually need some sort of address. Though homeless people can vote, USA.gov, Who Can Vote, provides a link to nonprofitvote.org, which recommends giving a homeless shelter's address when registering. But there are some other options as well for homeless people. In addition to an address, you will usually need some sort of ID number. Fortunately, headcount.org also says that if you don't have a social security number or state ID, most states will allow you to indicate that on your registration form. And then you will need to provide some different types of information. But in some states like Kansas, you need to prove that you are a US citizen, and a driver's license isn't sufficient. You need a birth certificate, or a naturalization certificate, or a passport. To make sure what information you will need to provide for your state, go to the link for the U.S. Election Assistance Commission website. This is a PDF with a mail-in voter registration form, and starting on page 8, it lists what is required specifically by every state. Another way to find the information is to use USA.gov Election Office. Choose your state, and it will take you to your state's election website. If you fish around a bit, you should be able to find the requirements. Now, let's say you registered a long time ago, but it's been some years since you actually voted. Well, your state may have taken you off its voter list, and you will not be able to vote until you re-register. In 2018, the Supreme Court upheld an Ohio law allowing the state to unregister voters if they hadn't voted for 6 years. This means any state can do that now. So, how do you check if you're still registered to vote? USA.gov Confirm Voter Registration gives you some information on checking your status, and it provides a link to the website for the National Association of Secretaries of State. There, you will select your state. You will be taken directly to the page on your state's election website for checking your registration status. You will have to type in your name and usually your date of birth and sometimes some other information. Then you will see whether or not you are still registered. So please double check your registration status. Now a quick recap. You need to register to vote in your state in order to vote in any U.S. election. You can register in person, online, or by mail. There is a different deadline for registering to vote for each state. In order to register to vote, you will need to provide some sort of address and often some form of ID. And if you're already registered, check to make sure you are still registered to vote. Please check the description for full links to the websites I included in this video. And thanks for the company.